Hey, thanks for having me, Lewis.
Talk to me about your earliest memories of wrestling.
Okay, so the first memory I have of wrestling at all was the cartoons. I remember Junkyard Dog and Hulk Hogan and all these guys in cartoon form, but these are like little like flashes of memories, just images. The clearest memory I have is going over to a friend's house. WrestleMania 6 just came out on VHS. I was going over to play a board game, so I interrupted them. Ultimate Warrior was coming down to the ring as I was patiently waiting, and I became fascinated. Man, he was like a real life He-Man or Conan the Barbarian, and just the ultimate guy who don't take no guff from anybody, I guess. And he was colorful, and I loved him. I absolutely loved him.
And did you know from a very young age, what your dream was? Was wrestling something you thought you were going to pursue from a very young age? Was there always a dream?
I mean, like, so the before I saw that, I saw Spud Webb and Dominique Wilkins play basketball, so I wanted to be an NBA player. I loved it. And then I saw pro wrestling, and then everything became that. But I didn't know it was real. You can still wrap your head around becoming a basketball player. Not that I would, but the route you go to high school basketball, local basketball. And this was before the internet, so even the idea of researching how to go, I didn't understand it. And then luckily, the internet did come out while I was in high school, and I could research that and found wrestling schools, and then it became real to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think every, especially boy around my age when I was younger can resonate with that feeling. And where do you go from having this dream that, as you touched on there, you didn't know was possible to actually taking the first steps to maybe researching, go into a wrestling school? What did those first steps look like to sort of get on this journey?
Yeah. So I had a buddy who worked with somebody at a gas station. We were in high school, and my friend's coworker was going to a wrestling school. I grew up in the northwest corner of the continuous United States near Seattle, Washington, and this guy was going to move down to California. And so that's when I found out wrestling schools existed, started researching, and that was it. I didn't really think what if or what I, oh yeah, that was it. That's what I was going to do. I didn't want to do anything else. I wouldn't have made it as anything else. It's just what I was supposed to do.
And what are your sort of memories like of that time in your life attending wrestling school for the first time? Because I imagine a sport like wrestling, it has quite a steep learning curve. It must be quite daunting stepping into a school for the first time.
Yeah, the first. So I went to Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy, but I went to another school prior to that, NWA Southwest, and it was a fine school. It was just 10 sessions. There's four students, two coaches, and then we were just kind of thrust into it. I was scared, I didn't understand it. I had my first match, and I wrestled a guy twice my age, and I was again, I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that I wanted to continue to do it, so I found another wrestling school. Um, I guess what I discovered was I wanted to get good at it. I did want to do this, and so I just had to figure out the strategy to get there.
You touched on Shawn Michaels Academy there. Who were some of your first coaches at that time, and did Shawn Michaels himself have much involvement with that academy, hands on?
Yeah, so Shawn Michaels was there every day except one day, and that was when he was the guest referee for the first ever SmackDown main event, and that was it. He made the next day after that. So if that I think that would have been a Tuesday, and he was at training Wednesday. He would have flown home that Wednesday morning and still made it into training, and he didn't have to do it, and he wasn't making any money off of this. And it was him and Rudy Boy Gonzalez. Rudy Boy didn't even miss that one practice, and Rudy would be there early and leave late, as late as I wanted to stay, and so it was those two. There was Mad Dog Ken Johnson was there for a stretch, and he was really kind to me as well. And Paul Diamond from Orient Express, he was there for a bit, but yeah, it was Rudy Boy and Shawn Michaels.
Wow. And how valuable was it at that stage, of your journey to have mentors of that stature?
Um, so I think everything is like who it's all connections, and so it was super important. I could have been the best wrestler in the world, but if I didn't have the best wrestler in the world telling other people I was great, I'd go nowhere. And so to me, it was extraordinarily important, that and the fact that they were dedicated. Him and Rudy really cared about it. So it was a perfect combination. I lucked out in the sense that I did hit the jackpot. I knew what I wanted, but they were exactly that, and better than I could have hoped for.
And your sort of professional debut, was that 1999? Was that against American Dragon?
Yeah, so I did do 4 matches prior to that after going to that NWA Southwest school. But then my 5th match and first match after Shawn Michaels school was against American Dragon. Yeah.
And reflecting on that now,
Yeah.
with such a, a debut against such a, revered partner there, how do you reflect back on that match, the preparation going into it, and how do you reflect back on that now?
Um, so what I think of is that we asked, Shawn wanted it to be a 10-minute draw, and we both asked, well, what if they chant 5 more minutes? And then he laughed at us, and because that was just a ridiculous thing. But I don't know if 1 or 2 people said it at the end of the match, so it was enough for us to ha ha ha. But I realized how stupid that was and how cocky it was of us to think they'd be chanting 5 more minutes. I didn't realize what wrestling was. And yeah, I mean, Bryan and I practiced together an awful lot. We wound up being attached together off in Memphis as well. So it was really nice to have had that match with him so early on in our career. Yeah.
With your after these formative matches, on Independence, how did you eventually get on the radar of WWE? Not necessarily get signed, but how did you get on their radar, do you think?
Um, there was a new company called Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor. Uh, saw me, and I also, after being fired from developmental in Memphis and getting to TV, I chased it again. I moved to Cincinnati where they had a developmental. I just kept going to the places that made sense. When that didn't work, I moved to California, which is where they got John Cena and Heidenreich and Lisa Marie, and all these people came from there. I just kind of figured out where I needed to be, and made it happen.
As you touched on there, as you were part of, these developmentals in Memphis, and maybe they didn't work out at first. Were you ever discouraged at all, or did you sort of just use it as
Yes.
fuel to the fire to get better? Or
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I got real discouraged, like, just real over dramatic. Just drive off this bridge, it's over, at 22 years old or whatever. It's real stupid, real stupid. Uh, I, I I guess at this point, twice that age, it's all just somewhere, whatever. It just is what it is. But at that time, man, I was crushed. Yeah.
and eventually, you make it back onto WWE's radar, and get signed. What was that time of your life like? How did that feel? Working your way back after the discouragement you touched on there to sort of realize, that dream of being in a top company.
I mean, it was great. That's what I wanted, but I was also really young, so it's not like getting it now, and having waited all these years and finally accomplished it. I'd been hired and fired, and then on TV at 22, 23 at the oldest. So and already done Japan a little bit, and I didn't realize, I had no perspective as to what any of that meant. To me, it came at the exact right time.
Mm. I wonder for people who aren't sort of familiar, obviously, with the world of wrestling. You know, we see what's on our TVs, we see people as superstars, but as you touched on there, you know, it's a journey of ups and downs. You realize dreams, and then, as you mentioned there, you get discouraged. It seems like quite a volatile business, you know, to be involved in. I wonder if you could touch a little bit on, you know, the sort of volatile nature of the world of pro wrestling, because it seems like, and especially when I've talked to other people like Matt Stryker the other day, it seems that, you know, as soon as you realize a dream, before you can even sort of come around to appreciating it, it could be gone the next day and you're having to work your way back.
Uh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no stability to it, but that's just what it is. And you know, you could work your whole life for a stable job, stable career, and then you know your wife gets hit by a bus. It just is what it is. This you know there's no stability, and you're kidding yourself if you think that there is, and you can have good long streaks, but you know. Uh, all of it, they all come, they all go, they all wind up being disgraced in one way or another. Even the legends have been disgraced. Uh, uh, it's it's all just is what it is. It's not. I mean, we signed up for it, Lewis. You know, it's not a hard life. It's an ever evolving life. It's a changing life, but it's really fun. What would be a hard life is doing something I don't love for you know, just to get by. That would be hard. This is just it's just chicken one day, feathers the next, and that's it.
Another thing I've heard a lot about since starting this project is, especially in the early years of people's careers in top companies, is this sort of locker room culture, the locker room hazing culture of the new kids on the block. I wonder, did you ever experience any of that when you made it to the WWE the first time, of sort of hazing culture, or, you know, the way you were treated by locker room leaders at the time?
Um, So I mean, like there was nothing I would consider abusive.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I was asked to clean the locker room as early on, or go get the beers on the international tours, bring them off the bus for the boys and stuff like that. But I admired these guys. I wanted to be like those guys. I had no problem doing any of that stuff. And if they yelled at me because they thought my match was bad, well, I asked them to watch my match. So I had no problem with it. And things change and wrestling changes. The product of that type of locker room was the like what you got from that environment was the product you got on TV. What you get from guys getting along a little bit better now, or having agents, or having their own buses, or playing video games is the product you get now. And the product you get now is not a bad thing or a good thing. It's a thing. It's just what it is. Um, I was from a time when yeah, the guys would get yelled at, and if your matches didn't have some sort of integrity that they were looking for, you get yelled at, and you held yourself to a certain standard, and I like that wrestling, and I like those guys, and I admired them. So yeah.
I wonder, were you the type of person then that sort of appreciated the opportunity to get feedback from, you know, more experienced guys, and sort of lean on the opportunity to learn from people around you at that point in your career?
I asked them. I would ask guys. I would ask guys I admire. I would ask Mr. Regal every time. I'd ask Mr. Benoit. I'd ask Mr. Guerrero. These are guys I wanted to wrestle like, and I'd ask them, and they would watch my matches on house shows, and they'd give me conflicting opinions on what to do, and that becomes really scary. Is when this guy tells you this, and the other thing is really gonna spit in the face of that guy's advice, and now I've got to go try to please two masters tomorrow, and sometimes three. Um, and I really liked it. I liked the wrestler I became. And so yeah, I used to. And I don't see that happen anymore. But people get feedback from different places now. So
I wonder, do you appreciate the fact that social media wasn't as big of a thing back then, when you were, when you were first coming up? Because you mentioned the way feedback now, a lot of the guys, the young guys who are making their way in the business today, they're getting feedback 24/7 from people who aren't even involved in the business. Everyone has a word to say. Do you appreciate the fact that that wasn't so much of a concern back then when you were younger?
I Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm great. I mean, for who I am, I'm grateful to have been from the time I'm from.
Yeah.
To put it like that, being 46 years old, there, when the internet first came out or anything, somebody would say, "Oh, I read it on the internet," and that was laughable. And you read it on the internet. Oh, well, it must be true. And now they don't even make Encyclopedia Britannicas physically anymore. It's all on the internet. But it still doesn't mean that it's true to me. And so I don't take it as the way a young person would. I didn't grow up in that environment. And so this is a reality to them, a deeper reality than it is to me. Um, and they're getting advice from all sources. Me, I was lucky enough to be around people I admired, and whatever you attribute it to, ask the people I admired directly, and they would give me very, I don't know, direct feedback. Sometimes, angry, sometimes positive, but well, always positive, but sometimes a thumbs up, but all of it was a positive.
You named a few. Who were some of the guys earlier on in your career that you went to for advice that you respected the most, that you wanted their opinion? Who are those guys you sort of seeked out?
Those three specifically.
Hmm.
Those three specifically. I was very lucky to be in a great locker room, great time. All these legends that would either be Undertaker and Kurt Angle and Edge and Triple H and all these guys. Now there'd be also the Raw locker room, but I was on the SmackDown locker room. But the guys who I watched from Japan were Eddie and Chris. These are the guys in the locker room. These were guys that were closer to my size. These are guys who I wanted to wrestle like. I wanted to wrestle like that style. And then having Mr. Regal, and I crossed paths in Memphis, and I loved his style too. Like I was lucky enough to be mentored by him, and because of their relationship, I could talk with them directly. So as a young man, 22, 23, doing house shows, those are the guys I talked to.
Wow, legends. And I suppose for someone like, a generational talent like an Eddie Guerrero, what was it about his work that, made you really want his opinion? And how was he as a mentor?
So I wouldn't even the only one I would call like a real mentor would be Mr. Regal. That's somebody I'd ride
Yeah.
with. These are guys who I would ask him advice every day,
Yeah.
on matches, but um I wouldn't pester them beyond that. I wouldn't ask them how do I approach this or how do I approach that. Just matches. Would you watch my match, sir? Um, yeah, I mean, what I liked about him is that he he was smooth and Chris was rugged, and they both put on a brilliant match. Whether it was ECW, whether it was the stuff from Japan, I liked watching those guys wrestle. I liked how they could. It was a big step forward in anything I saw. This is I grew up, 80s, 90s pro wrestling, and now here's guys stringing stuff, chain wrestling together in an exciting way. So that's what attracted me to it, the speed and the intensity of those guys.
So, in regards to your sort of first real run in the company, I put on Instagram the other day just if anyone had any questions, and someone wanted me to ask you about this infamous moment. I was looking at it on YouTube earlier, it has millions of views. The infamous rap battle with John Cena. How involved were you in the development of your character at this point?
Oh, they would just tell me what I had for TV this week.
Hmm.
Um, as far as the rap battle goes, it was from a house show. Brian Hebner was beatboxing on the microphone, and they had John and I doing some sort of anything anyways. I think at that point, it was not much of anything. He was, uh hadn't had a program yet, but was doing stuff. And uh and so yeah, I was just the snarky little kid that they would plug in to do goofy stuff. And so with that, we gotta write the rap together. John wrote the rap, and I was helping him with the jokes, and none of it made it on TV because Shane McMahon rewrote the entire thing. And that's what happened. Yeah. But I gotta pick out the outfit. That was I was yeah, I fought for that.
Nice. And it's quite a memorable outfit. I was watching the video earlier.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we talked a little bit about that in between period, but when you made it back to the company in 2005, were you pitched originally that you were going to be part of a tag team and you were going to be a tag team wrestler for this next run?
No, I was coming back because they were looking to restart the cruiserweight division, which they didn't do, but they brought me back. So Paul and I had teamed a few matches prior to that, and that was something that I had suggested when I was doing nothing. But then I went back to Japan, and then when we were again doing nothing, while I was gone, Paul had success being a cruiserweight champion and a tag team champion with Billy Kidman, but then again was doing nothing. So I think they just slapped us together.
And, before we started, well, right at the top, I was touching on why sort of this period of your career, I have such fond memories of back then. I wonder, just a personal question, where did the idea come from for your entrance as a tag team with the sort of theater mask aesthetic? Where did that all come from?
Oh, my wife. Yeah, my wife came up with the mask. She took a mold of my face and then would make different masks for us. Yeah. Yeah, and then ultimately they didn't like it, but I liked them. I thought they were cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely set you apart. I mean, in an industry sometimes where, you want to skip straight to the action, I used to really enjoy your entrances because of, the mask. I think it really helped elevate you as characters and make you stand out from the rest of the pack. I thought it was a great idea.
Well, thanks, Lewis. I appreciate it, man.
Now, during that time, in that tag team, you had, I believe it was the longest run as tag team champions up until about 2016. I think it was broken. So how do you look back on that career, that part of your career, that extended period of tag team wrestling and being the tag champs? Do you look back on it with fond memories?
The whole longest thing though, like that's for like longest whatever tech, but that just means since SmackDown started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like yeah. It's not even like a really that like since like since 2000 or mid 99, whatever it would be. But it was cool. It was cool. It meant I was on the road all the time. It meant, if you're the tag champs, you're doing the house shows. Um, and it was a blast. It was a blast. We were having a lot of fun getting to see the world, and so they were fond memories. None of it was really all that planned there, but we just hung on to them for a while, and so yeah, yeah, nothing but good memories.
And sort of during that career, you touched on there, you're traveling all over the world. The wrestling schedule back then was very different to how it's constructed right now. How did you fare with the copious amounts of travel, the house shows on top of the TV, what I can imagine is quite a busy and hectic lifestyle?
And you got to be somewhere, right? You know what I mean? Like, uh, if it's a 10-hour drive, okay, we're gonna sit on your couch for 10 hours. What's the difference? You're sitting somewhere anyways. It, the being stuck in an uncomfortable chair on a plane is the worst part of the job. But that's it. That's it. I think people complain about it because they want to, I don't know, seem more heroic than they are. It's a really great way to spend your life. Yeah.
And I hear a lot of sort of modern wrestlers, especially in the WWE now, have this debate on whether house shows are a net positive or a net negative. There's probably pros and cons that come with both. But I wonder what your school of thought is on, that house show schedule of wrestling, sometimes 7 days a week. Are you a person that believes in that it's a good thing for the business to get that amount of reps in? Or you may be on the other side of the fence where, you think it was a little bit too much and a little bit of time off would have been beneficial? Where do you stand on that whole debate then?
I mean, well, it's 7 days a week is every day of a week. That's a lot. I mean, how many weeks in a row of every day can you do? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Would you want to be a musician who doesn't tour? Hey, and then not only that, like they get tired of singing the same songs. We get to sing new songs. We get to create new stuff. And if you care about it, I want to wrestle. And if you love it, and this is any sort of art or sport or any sort of expression to you, you should be fighting to do house shows. And if your body needs rest, you need rest. But oh, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. You got to do something. And if you love this, then it's worth it.
Mm. And during this part of your career, during the tag team phase, who were some of your favorite tag teams to work with during this time?
Oh man, you know, you do one program at a time and here then there. So but I guess the ones that were the three that stood out, Casey James, Idol Stevens was real fun. Dave Taylor, William Regal was a lot of fun. And then Noble and Kid Cash, the Pitbulls, man. These are all guys that wrestle different styles. Pitbull's super intense, and so were Dave Taylor and William Regal. The Stevens and Casey James, they're just uh super well trained like developmental guys, but they loved pro wrestling. They'd be doing it without the system, and they were great having gone through it. And anyways, those would be our favorite, or my favorite feuds out of the year.
And I always wonder this with established and successful tag teams. Were you sort of happy to continue your career, I suppose indefinitely the time as part of a tag team, or was it always part of you that, was looking forward to breaking out back into the sort of singles, a singles run, or were you content in the tag team? Where was your sort of desire at that time?
No, I wanted to do tag team just uh, as far as it could take me, and then if any sort of anything after that was like this, I didn't want to do it any longer. I wanted to get as far as I could in pro wrestling, and tag team wrestling in the WWE is not a main event. It doesn't main event WrestleManias. It gets on to WrestleMania, and it gets on in a way where they have to throw in ladders and tables and stuff. That's what would they do at TLC for the main event of a WrestleMania? They wouldn't, but this is the tag titles. This is so they need to throw props on top of gimmicks to even get the tag titles on way back when there wasn't, an NXT, a Raw, and a SmackDown. So yeah, they don't. I when it became apparent that the tag team division would only go so far, then that was that.
And before sort of transitioning back into a singles wrestler, reflecting back on that period of time in the tag team division, are you happy with that body of work, or do you think there was anything else that you wish you could have done before moving back into the singles division?
Well, I mean, I think what happened. We wound up getting drafted, moved over. Where Paul and I are doing, the Sunday night shows or whatever, the pre-tape shows, and so that was it. The only other things we could have done at that point would have been for him and I to have wrestled the Machine Guns over in TNA or something like that. And Paul and I did get to wrestle the Young Bucks a few times on Indies, and that was really nice. But besides having a few like quality opponents that we never really got to wrestle, there wasn't anything else we could have done. It would have just been doing the same thing over and over again, or holding this for longer. It's nothing new though.
You touched on some of those sort of Sunday shows there, like Velocity, Heat, a couple of them. Were you the type of person that would you giving it 100% no matter whether it's an episode of Velocity or a WrestleMania? Were you still as motivated to put on a fantastic show?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, if you're wrestling on a Velocity, um, like I would want to put on a show that would, especially when young, as a like an up yours, to have it really good. And I'll tell you, if you go, I'll stand by any of my old Velocity matches as an up yours, and that would have been better. The technique would have been better. I was faster, more clever in the things that I did within the parameters that I had on that Velocity than these guys were on that SmackDown. I took a lot of pride in that, working within my parameters, but having it be better in every which way I possibly could. Yeah, even on some whatever show I'm gonna do next in the middle of nowhere, I'm gonna take pride in reading that crowd as best as I can to give them the best experience they can. I do take pride in it. This is what I do, and this is what I love, and this is why you're even talking to me is because of this. So, yeah, I do take pride in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that as someone who, growing up in the UK, wrestling was traditionally on Sky Sports, which you have to pay extra money for, which
Mm,
at my point, in my childhood, we didn't have that. So what was available to me were the shows like a Velocity, Heat, those extra shows that would be on our TV for free on a weekend
mm,
morning. So a lot of my fondest memories of wrestling was that I couldn't watch the big events unless my friends had them on DVD or something like that. So a lot of my fondest memories are on those shows, and I'm so thankful that so much talent put in the effort on those shows to make those special. Because for me, a lot of time that was my Monday Night Raw, that was my Friday Night SmackDown.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I used to watch these superstars, in the morning when I was a kid, that's all there was. It would be the arty in the ring guy versus the superstar who would just pummel them, and that's all I got to watch, and I still loved it. Yeah, so I get it, and man, it wasn't just me. You watch Jimmy Yang or Paul London, their matches on Velocity were insane. And this guy too hottie or a show for Naki still getting the crowd to go crazy. They just knew how to work them just right, and everybody really still took pride in their work. I think everybody did then.
The transitioning then to your singles run next, where did the idea for the Bryan Kendrick character to come from, and the idea of putting "the" in front of your name?
The V came from Vince. He came up with the name V. The character itself was just allowing me to have a microphone. There wasn't anything to it. It was built out of frustration and me going and waiting to talk to the boss after work one day and real adamant that it's this or I'm out of here and so yeah, I with some swearing and this and that. It was well, what do you got for me? And I said my dad's a paranoid schizophrenic, my mother's a Mensa. You got a team of writers, you tell me what you got. And he says you go down to Tampa, find yourself a heater. Grab Ezekiel Jackson and that was it. And so then they gave me a promo. I read it for him. He didn't like it. I didn't like it either. He says, "What do you have?" I gave him a promo. He said, "That's it, but you're the," and that was it. So the character was just me getting to talk.
Wow. And what was your relationship like with Vince and the interactions you did have with him? It sounded like you're quite confident to say how you felt and pitch ideas at least.
Um, oh man, I was very nervous every time. I did this maybe 4 times. I went up and talked with them. One time to ask for my release, one time to ask for Paul and I to get a push, one time for this. I want my release or I want to push, and then another time to get in Money in the Bank, and he was not complimentary. So yeah, that one didn't go well, but um I was just built up courage and I just gambled on myself. I gambled myself the whole time moving to Texas to train or, you know, putting myself in the right place. Um, everybody knows how to do it. You just got to gamble on yourself, and I've done that, and I've won some and I've lost some.
Mm. Talking about gambling on yourself after leaving WWE in 2009, what was that transition like coming back into, I suppose, the indie scene and other companies? And what work are you most proud of at that era post 2009?
Oh, anywhere between then and now.
Anywhere between then and say coming back to WWE the next time around.
Um, yeah, there would have been some good matches here or there, but it was really floundering.
Mm.
I wasn't doing anything. I did some TNA.
Yeah.
Had some fun, did some stuff with Abyss. I really enjoyed that. But a lot of it was just directionless. And yeah, I'm prouder of the Cruiserweight Classic and 205 Live work than anything I was during that period of time.
Mm. Well, I do want to get to the Cruiserweight Classic, but before then, you mentioned you had a stint in TNA in the X division. You held that title, right? So, what did holding a singles championship mean to you? Was it almost vindicating in a way?
Uh, no, it was like um it, I didn't feel like I won anything because I haven't won anything. It's just that, when they say it's a prop, it is a prop, and it's a thing that I've seen guys get upset, but that's like on the indies and stuff, where, or they get excited that they win a belt, or they cry when they win a belt, but um I think I'm a halfway intelligent person, and like I don't. It's a prop, and I get it, and I didn't. I've never won a match. I've never lost a match in my life. I did, and it wasn't as if the company was hinging on the X division, and that they now put their faith in me.
Mm.
you know when they put your faith in you is when they give you those 20-minute talking segments. I never got that. I never felt accomplished in that way. I've never got to start off the show and talk for 20 minutes.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, and probably served you to not tie your worth into those accolades. I imagine it's quite easy, you hear stories of people being given a championship and they really start to believe they are the heavyweight champion of the world, right? So I suppose it's probably quite self-serving to have that view that you had of to always remind yourself, in your words, that it was a prop to you, and that to not sort of tie your self-worth into those accolades.
I think it winds up being the way it is for a lot of these guys who make it a living. When they do it for how they pay their bills. When we won the tag title, it was Funaki and I went to a uh, um, Waffle House is where we had dinner. Shofunaki and I after the show, on our way to the next town in middle of nowhere, Arizona, and that's how I celebrated my first championship for the company I always wanted to work for, because it wasn't. I didn't realize none of it's real. It's not a big and maybe that feeling is different when you're on a WrestleMania, main eventing WrestleMania. That is, the company has invested in you. They're gonna put their faith in you and all that. I don't know. I'd have to ask those guys if they do feel accomplished or not, or if it still feels like just as much nothing.
And being part of that X division briefly, a lot of people in the business that I've listened to in interviews, podcasts, they cite the X division as almost foundational to the style of wrestling we see today, right? With people like AJ Styles and eventually Samoa Joe. Do you feel like that when you look back on the style of wrestling that came from the X division?
I think it's Ring of Honor.
Mm.
I think the X division is just, it was a televised version of Ring of Honor, and I think Ring of Honor. I don't. It's not to disparage the X division, so I shouldn't be comparing the two, but I think I think Ring of Honor is what led the way as far as changing that. And I think if you look at all the guys who came from there, um, yeah, AJ Styles, but AJ Styles came to WWE well after that had been established. But Samoa Joe, X Division, sure, but much more so Ring of Honor. Same with Seth Rollins. Same with any of these guys. Ring of Honor. Whether it's a Kevin Owens, all these guys. Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor. I think it was Ring of Honor. X Division was great. I think TNA should get more credit for Women's Revolution than anything else. They're the ones to feature women and probably say that women draw the best ratings and would still give them sex appeal and good technique and all that. So I think that's what more than X Division. It's the women's.
Oh, a couple of times in this interview, you've touched on Ring of Honor. It seems, like a company you have a lot of respect and admiration for what they've done for the business as well.
Yeah, I mean, I yeah, I do. I think it doesn't exist anymore. It's not the same. I know the name's the same, but the easy comparisons are the WWF, ECW, or any of that. But Gabe Sapolsky had a fantastic eye. Kerry Silkin had this wonderful vision of how to light it all too, and it was perfect combination and with the scouting and Kerry's history of pro wrestling and how they blended together. And anyways, I loved it. And yeah, hopefully that footage is maintained well somewhere.
I remember when the first rumblings came out about, WWE's Cruiserweight Classic and a real return to the Cruiserweight division. I was very excited. A lot of people were very excited. It felt like something people have been waiting for a long time. When did you first start to hear that WWE was, considering this push and this reinvigoration of the Cruiserweight division?
I'm 3 years prior to that, maybe something like that. But it's always like a possibility. But there's always the possibilities. I've been hired several times because of the starting up a cruiserweight division, and sometimes it doesn't happen. When it was actually going to happen, as far as the show goes, and they're calling people, I think 3 months before it started. So maybe February, March, whenever that would have been. Yeah, of that year.
And reflecting back on the Cruiserweight Classic, 205 Live, what is some of the work during that period that you are most proud of?
My goal was for everybody that I worked with, and myself included, get offered a contract. And so we did. Kota Ibushi did not sign a contract, but he was offered again and again. But Mendoza, Nice, myself, we all got contracts. And the matches I had with all three of them, I was really happy with. And the one with Ibushi, I was really happy with because of the culmination of the story with the promos with Danielson on commentary and us having trained together. I thought was a really nice. Like, it's not often you can get tears involved in a pro wrestling match, and so we were able to do that in that match, and that I was proud of.
A lot of fans are really fond of cruiserweight wrestling and have been champion for it to be in the WWE again. What is it about the cruiserweight? It almost has its own style, right? That I can't really explain it, but how would you explain the style of cruiserweight wrestling?
Um, so typically you'd expect a faster pace. That's the idea of a cruiserweight match. Even if you're going to have, let's say, a Drew Gulak, he's still going to he's just going to be there to stop that pace, but it's still going to zip. When it's time to zip, it's going to zip, and it's going to be crisp. It's going to be cleaner. It's going to be a little more innovative. And I suppose there's the reason being is because there's just way more people who fit in that category, so the competition is going to be way harder in that category. And uh, cruiserweights don't really exist anymore, though. I don't know what to say, because um, when Finn Balor is a world heavyweight champion, or a Bryan Danielson, or an AJ Styles, any of these guys, it's where do you draw a line? If Shawn Michaels is a heavyweight, it's hard to have a cruiserweight anymore.
Mm. Why do you think that, or what would be your best guess that WWE would have sort of disbanded that cruiserweight title, that cruiserweight division? Because for me, that's the style of wrestling. That was a division that I gravitate towards, and especially many of the people in my life I know really found that, as entertaining as anything. Why do you think that doesn't sort of translate, I suppose, and was eventually disbanded?
Mm. So I don't know. I guess anything from the past, I guess, based around what I would think Vince would think, uh, and not even what he would think, but what I think he thinks the fans think. The average fan thinks they can beat up a cruiserweight, and so they don't want to see people that they can beat up. Oh wow, he can do a flip, but I could knock him out. But these giant guys, these larger than life guys, they can't do that, so they want to see that. Um, and when you do have um, a cruiserweight division, then why isn't guys like a Finn Balor in the cruiserweight division? Well, the reason is because he's way better than any of the cruiserweights. Well, then why have a cruiserweight division? If this guy is way better, it doesn't make sense. So you'd have to truly keep them separated, and then do you then keep Shawn Michaels away from the heavyweights if he's by far the most entertaining and puts on his best show with heavyweights? What do you do? I guess what you do, like, you have an X division title where you just kind of rename it something else, and it just insinuates a different style. I don't know what you do, but I, I love cruiserweight wrestling too. I do love that fast-paced style, and I don't mind if Fergal Devitt is world heavyweight champ and Cedric Alexander is 20 pounds heavier and cruiserweight champ. That doesn't even bother me, because it's going to be different styles.
And I suppose I'd love to ask you about your time working as a producer as well. Was that a side of the business you enjoyed, and what do you think made you a good asset as a producer?
Um, I I do like it. I don't like that it comes at the expense of not being able to wrestle. So so that's the negative to it. The other negative part becomes when people become, like, emotional about it. They're upset about any of this stuff, and I've had to say to a few people when agenting their matches in a nice as possible way, I don't care if you wrestle or not tonight. Like, this match, I don't care about this match. They gave me this match. I didn't pitch for this match. I didn't pitch who wins. I don't care if you don't wrestle tonight. That's how little any of it means to me. Uh, when all I want is to give the boss what they want. And if they're happy giving the boss what they want, meaning, you know, bad guy, you cheat, make the good guy look like they're going to win and cheat at the end. You guys got 5 minutes to do it. Do you want your entrances or not? Because we're going to have to, that 5 minutes is going to be 3 minutes then. Okay. Let's get camera angles. And all I want to find out is if whatever they're going to do is egregious, is going to upset the boss. Then if it's not, I want to get those camera angles and replays. And other than that, I don't care what they do. I don't, doesn't need to entertain me. It needs to entertain the boss and make them happy. And I know which way we're directing it. And so I think that's um, what makes me good at it is that I've no I don't care, you know.
Yeah, I know you don't have any sort of personal affiliation to the match then, but I wonder, with everything you just said in mind then about, you being very goal directed with the producing, is there a match that you've produced that you were maybe most proud of producing?
Oh, there's a couple that I've been real proud of. There was there was one uh, with Steph Delander and Io Sky and JC Jane, and JC takes a horrible dive at the commercial break, and it's supposed to be a three-way all the way through, and now she's with the doctors, and Io it doesn't speak English, and I'm hoping Io takes over, and I'm calling stuff to her, but she can't understand, and now I'm having to call everything through Steph, uh, because she speaks English, through the referee, and they did great. The girls, the ladies pulled it off. It was and, to know that they did it just on the fly, and then you know, with Bloom and myself just talking through the headsets when need be. That one was great as far as like you feel good. As far as the best match would have been Ilya versus Walter, their second match, but that was just they want 25 minutes and let me get the replays. That was it. You guys tell me what you want to do. Do you want a replay there? What camera angle do you want? And so that was the best match I've agent did. It had nothing to do with me, but if you like the replays, and yeah, you have me to thank.
So for everyone listening, watching right now, since they may have last seen you on our WWE screens at least, talk to me a little bit about the work you've been doing since, and what are some of your most fondest recent memories in the world of wrestling?
Yeah, I'm just traveling the indies, but these indies wind up being around the world. I mentioned I just came back from Cardiff. I go to Vegas this week just to see my mom and go Hawks, go celebrate the Super Bowl with her, and then yeah, I fly to the Philippines to Australia, come home for 3 days, go to the UK, from UK to Bulgaria, Bulgaria to Scotland, Scotland to Ireland, Ireland to Cyprus, back to the UK, home for 2 days, then I go to Chile, and that's all before April. And so that's all. It's just different indies around the world that I'm getting to see the world, and I guess what's been great recently, went to Valparaiso in Chile. That was wonderful. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's 550 years old. It's got funiculars, like elevators in the streets. Went to Salisbury Cathedral this last week, and saw the Magna Carta. That was really nice, Lewis. Yeah, just do that kind of stuff.
I love it. What a way to live your life, man. And
Thanks, buddy.
what is the indie scene like now? Having been in it through different periods of your career, is the indie scene quite hot right now? Is this something to be excited about?
Oh, I guess I don't know. I don't do that. I like if the U.S. Indies. I don't know.
Hmm.
I do very few, but the ones I do, I like. I do Wildcat in New Orleans, and it's great. Um, the indie wrestlers I run into, they're really talented. I think that because of that, indie wrestling must be good. Internationally, it's good. Um, the they have the ability to study all the like black and white footage now at their fingertips on their phone. So yeah, it should be good, and I think it probably is.
Amazing. Well, before we let everyone listening and watching know where they can find you on social media and maybe check out some of these shows you're mentioning, I wonder if we were to sort of fast forward to a future where both of us were sort of looking back on our careers, you were looking back on your wrestling career, would it be a career that that little kid that we talked about at the start of this, with the watching those wrestling cartoons, would it be a career that he was proud of? Would it be a career that, achieved everything he wanted? That if you told that little kid, this is the career you're going to have, what would he have felt back then?
I mean, achieved everything I would have dreamed of. No, but happy, absolutely, and really, really happy. And not just the little kid, the 14, the 15-year-old that was facing real life coming up ahead and thinking that this wouldn't be real. Thinking that I would still be in a small town somewhere that I don't like, where the motto as a kid, Lacey sucked, and that was the T-shirt in the mall, and then to think I'd still be living there, absolutely not. To not be doing that is a success. To have got to travel the world and still get to do it. Um, yeah, man. If I can do what Bushwhacker Luke is doing and still go out there and still, in his 70s, be doing appearances and still go down and headbutt somebody, man, and still travel the world and meet young wrestlers who love it and chat wrestling with them and occasionally run into old friends, and yeah, I'll do that forever. That sounds nice.
I love that, man. I mean, for me, that's the definition of success, right? If you wake up in the morning and you're excited about what you're going to do that day, I don't think there's a better way to live your life.
I'll take it then.
Amazing. Well, where can everyone listening and watching find you on social media? Where can they check out this schedule and maybe catch you at a show?
Um, all I have is Instagram, Mr. Bryan Kendrick, just MrBriankendrick.
Amazing. Well, I'll make sure the Instagram is linked below, so everyone listening, watching, just click below, take you to Brian's Instagram. You can browse there and see what's coming up. But Bryan, just a massive thank you to you, man. This has been an absolute pleasure. As I mentioned at the start, you were one of the guys I really wanted to speak to when I sort of set out on this project, and I have so many fond memories as a kid of watching you in those early years, and me and my brother pretending to be you wrestling on our trampoline. So thank you so much for the fond memories. I'm a
Nice.
big fan of your work, and I hope to catch you next time you're wrestling in my capital city.
That sounds very, thanks for the kind words, and yeah, I hope to see you in Cardiff.